Hello guys. So before we close off the topic on the external features of cerebellum, so externally what are the things we have seen so far? At the end, like a summary part, we shall just write it down. Okay. So this would be like a quick review for you whenever you are revising for your exam. So first important thing is that let us say what are the two hemispheres which we have got. First of all, let me write down the questions, and in the meanwhile you frame the answers within yourself. Okay. So what are the two hemispheres we have got? Okay. Second important thing, what are the two notches of the cerebellum? What are the two notches of the cerebellum? So we are discussing right now about the cerebellum. Okay. We are discussing right now about the cerebellum, the summary of the entire cerebellum. So in this summary of the cerebellum, within the cerebellum, how many hemispheres we have got? You know, we have got the right cerebellar hemisphere and left cerebellar hemisphere, right? So in the same way, what are the two notches we have got? Next, what are the two surfaces we have got? So two surfaces we have got, two borders we have got, and next important thing is how many superior cerebellar peduncles we have got. Superior cerebellar peduncles. After that, how many middle cerebellar peduncles we have got? How many middle cerebellar peduncles we have got? And in the same way, how many inferior cerebellar peduncles we have got? How many inferior cerebellar peduncles we have got? So how many superior cerebellar peduncles? How many middle cerebellar peduncles? How many, let us say, inferior cerebellar peduncles we have got? In the same way, we will also discuss that there are two important anterior relations. What are these two important anterior relations? That also we will discuss. So let us have a quick review of all these things, guys. So important things which you need to know here is that, let us say, what are the two hemispheres we have got? We have got the right and left cerebellar hemisphere, right? So how many we have got? We have got the right and left hemisphere. Don't confuse it with the cerebral hemisphere. This is cerebellar hemisphere. Okay. Next, two notches we have got. What are the two notches? If you remember the picture which I have drawn previously, right? If you remember the picture, I told you that this particular structure over here is called as your midbrain, right? And after that, this particular structure over here is called as your pons. After that, this particular structure is called as medulla oblongata, continuing down as your spinal cord, right? And here, I've told you that this part is your cerebellum, like this. Now in this cerebellum, if you closely observe, see this part, this line which I'm drawing right now, this is called as your anterior notch, and there is a notch on the back also. This is called as your posterior notch. Okay. So how many notches we have got? Two notches. So what are these two notches called as? Anterior and posterior notch. Anterior as well as posterior notch. Okay. Next, what are the two surfaces? What are the two surfaces we have got? For example, this is how your cerebellum is, right? So in this cerebellum, this surface which you can see on the top, right? This surface which you can see on the top, this is called as a superior surface. And down here, this surface which you can see is called as the inferior surface. How many surfaces we have got? Superior surface and inferior surface. So two surfaces we have got, superior surface and inferior surface. Inferior surfaces. Okay. Next, what are the two borders we have got? If you remember, in the starting of the cerebellum, I have discussed that cerebellum has got two borders. One is called as the anterolateral border, another one is called as a posterior border. Anterolateral border, and the next one you have got is the posterior border. Posterior border. Now coming to the cerebellar peduncles, how many cerebellar peduncles we have got? We have got three. We have got one is called as a superior cerebellar peduncle, second is called as a middle cerebellar peduncle, and third is called as an inferior cerebellar peduncle. So if you look at the picture over here, right? So if you can see, from the midbrain attached to the cerebellum, we have got a bundle of fibers like this. This comprises superior cerebellar peduncle. From the pons attached to the cerebellum, here you have got the middle cerebellar peduncle. From the medulla oblongata attached to the cerebellum, this is called as inferior cerebellar peduncle. Now, this is a lateral view. This is a lateral view. Now, the same cerebellar peduncles are also located on the opposite side also. Yes or no? On back of this also, they are also located. So, every cerebellar peduncle is in a pair. There are two superior cerebellar peduncles, there are two middle cerebellar peduncles, and there are two inferior cerebellar peduncles. So, how many superior cerebellar peduncles are there? 2. Middle cerebellar peduncles are also 2. And next, inferior cerebellar peduncles are also 2. Next important thing, what are the two anterior relations of the cerebellum? Two anterior relations of the cerebellum in the sense, exactly right, if this is your cerebellum, right in front of the cerebellum, what are the two structures that are located? One is called as the pons, another one is called as your medulla oblongata. So, anterior relations are, one is called as your pons and the other one is called as your medulla oblongata. Medulla oblongata, right? So, these are some of the important things which you need to know. You can also call it as game of two. What is game of two? Game of two is nothing but two hemispheres we have got, two notches we have got, right? Two hemispheres, two notches, two surfaces, two borders, and two cerebellar hemispheres, two middle cerebellar hemispheres, and two inferior cerebellar hemispheres. And obviously, what are the two anterior relations over here? Now, after this, what we shall discuss is that we shall discuss about game of 3. So, what are the three structures that are located within this cerebellum? Okay. So, let us again start discussing. The first important thing is, what are the 3 parts of cerebellum? I am not talking about what are the cerebellar hemispheres. I am just asking what are the 3 parts of the cerebellum. Okay. Second question for you is, what are the 3 anatomical lobes of the cerebellum? We have discussed different kinds of lobes, you remember? We have discussed anatomical lobes, we have discussed embryological lobes, we have even discussed physiological lobes. So, what are the anatomical lobes? What are the anatomical lobes? How many are they? Third important thing is that, and what are the physiological lobes? Obviously, all of you know. How many physiological lobes are there? There are 3 physiological lobes. And in the same way, how many embryological lobes are there? Again, the answer is 3. So, let us write down the names of them. Embryological lobes. Okay, embryological lobes. Now, after this, okay, first of all, let us finish these things and then we shall go on to the next part. So, first important thing is that what are the 3 parts? What are the 3 parts, guys? You tell me. See, for example, this is your right cerebellar hemisphere. This is your left cerebellar hemisphere. In the center, you have got a structure like this, and this structure which is located exactly in the center is called as your vermis. So, what are these things we have got? We have got right cerebellar hemisphere, we have got left cerebellar hemisphere, and we have got vermis in the center. So, how many parts? 3 parts. So, what are those 3 parts here? We have got right and left cerebellar hemisphere, and after that we have got what? We have got vermis. Next, what are the different kinds of anatomical lobes? Now, when it comes to the anatomical lobes, there are 3 important types of anatomical lobes. One is called as the anterior lobe, another one is called as a posterior lobe. Posterior lobe is also called as middle lobe. If you have attended my previous lectures on different kinds of lobes of cerebellum, there you will understand very clearly. One is called as the anterior lobe, another one is called as a posterior or the middle lobe, and the next one is called as a flocculonodular lobe. Okay, so one you call it as the anterior lobe, next one you have got is the posterior lobe, or you can also call it as middle lobe, and third one over here is called as your flocculonodular lobe. So these are the 3 different types of lobes we have got. Now, these are what? Anatomical lobes. Now, when it comes to the physiological lobes, so what are the different kinds of physiological lobes we have got? So, if you remember, guys, we have discussed what are the different kinds of physiological lobes yesterday. See, one physiological lobe is vestibulospinocerebellar lobe. One is called as vestibulospinocerebellar lobe. Another one is simply called spinocerebellar lobe. Another one is called as corticopontocerebellar lobe. What are the three lobes? One is called as vestibulospinocerebellar lobe. Okay. Another one is simply called as spinocerebellar lobe, and another one is called as corticopontocerebellar lobe, right? So the last one will be corticopontocerebellar lobe. Corticopontocerebellar lobe. So these are the three important types of physiological lobes which you have got. Now, next important thing is, what are the different types of embryological lobes we have got? So we discussed yesterday that the embryological lobes are three. The first formed embryological lobe is called as archicerebellum. The next formed embryological lobe is called as what? It is called as paleocerebellum. And the third formed embryological lobe is called as neocerebellum. So there are three important embryological lobes that are formed. So the first formed embryological lobes is called as archicerebellum. The second formed after this is called as paleocerebellum. And the thirdly formed embryological lobe is your neo is a newly formed neocerebellum. Okay. Now, apart from this, I hope you are clear with this. Apart from this, let us discuss what is the fifth important thing. Fifth important thing is that this cerebellum has got three important fissures. So what are these three major fissures? There are many fissures, I agree, but there are three major fissures. So what are the three major fissures? Yes, what are the three major fissures, guys? One is called as fissura prima, if you remember. One is called as fissura prima. Okay. After fissura prima, the next fissure, that is called as horizontal fissure. So, if you want to understand what is fissura prima, what is horizontal fissure and all, you have to watch my previous lectures. Okay. So, this is the end lecture of the cerebellum. So, horizontal fissure. And third important fissure is called as posterolateral fissure. Posterolateral fissure. So from the previous lectures, I have discussed these three fissures over here, right? So if you can figure out this lecture over here, in this very clearly you will see. See this fissure which you can see over here. You see, this is called as fissura prima. This is called as fissura prima. This is one major fissure. Second is, you see, this is called as a horizontal fissure, this line, right? So this horizontal fissure is dividing the cerebellum into the upper half as well as the lower half. And third important thing is, this yellow color part, can you see, this is called as a posterolateral fissure. So how many fissures we have got? Three. So fissura prima, and next horizontal fissure, and next posterolateral fissure. Sir, prepyramidal is also a fissure, postlunate is also a fissure, postcentral is also a fissure. They are also fissures, but they are not called as major fissures. These three are called as major fissures. Okay, so that is what I was telling you. The major fissures are three: fissura prima, horizontal fissure, as well as a posterolateral fissure. Now, after the discussion of the fissures is done, so let us discuss what are the three pairs of peduncles. This way also the question can be asked, what are the three pairs of peduncles? We discussed just now, guys, what are the three pairs of peduncles. So what are the three pairs of peduncles? One is called as superior cerebellar peduncle, middle cerebellar peduncle, and inferior cerebellar peduncle. Superior, middle, and inferior what? Cerebellar peduncle. Inferior cerebellar peduncle. Okay. Now after this, the next important thing. What is the next important thing here? After this, the next important thing. The next important thing is that what are the three connections of cerebellum? What are the three connections of The cerebellum, or it is also given as what are the three connections of the brainstem. What are the three connections of the brainstem? First of all, what is brainstem? Brainstem is nothing but, you see, this is your midbrain, this is your pons, and third one is your medulla oblongata, right? So your midbrain, pons, medulla oblongata, together you call it as brainstem. Now how is cerebellum attached to all these three things? Cerebellum is attached to this brainstem, contents of the brainstem, with the help of peduncles, superior, middle, as well as inferior. How many are there? There are three, right? So three pairs of peduncles, okay? So three connections of the brainstem. What are the three connections of the brainstem? One you have got is the midbrain, another one you got is your pons, and another one is your medulla oblongata. Okay, next, if you look at the cerebellum, when you have the cut section of the cerebellum, inside the cerebellum, what are the structural parts? There are three most important structural parts. So can anyone tell what are the three important structural parts? One is called as a gray matter, another one is called as a white matter, and between the gray matter and white matter, right? So let us say that the cerebral cortex, okay, let me draw this thing. Let us say that this is your cerebellum. This is your cerebellum, for example. Now in this cerebellum, if you see the outer side, this red color thing which I am drawing here, this is called as a outer gray matter. What is this? Outer gray matter. If that is outer gray matter, what is in between the white color thing? That is called as white matter. So this one is called as gray matter. If that is gray matter, the center one is called as the white matter. Center one is called as your white matter. Now within the white matter, there are some pieces of gray matter. You see some small pieces of gray matter that are present. Now what are these pieces of gray matter called as? These pieces of gray matter that are present within the white matter are called as nuclei. What are they called as? These are called as nuclei. So if I ask what are the three structural parts which you have got, what will you tell? One you will tell is that there is gray matter. Repeat. One you will tell is there is gray matter. Next one is a white matter, and third one is called as a nuclei. Nuclei is nothing but the gray matter only. A pieces of gray matter that is located in the white matter is called as your nuclei. So this thing I haven't discussed, right? So we will discuss in detail when we are discussing about the internal structures of the cerebellum. Okay. Now next important thing also I haven't discussed. Again I'm telling you, when we discuss about the internal structures, there we will discuss. Okay. Now within the cerebellar cortex, also you have got three important layers. Okay, so what are the three layers? Of cerebellum? Again, three layers of cerebellar cortex. Again, this thing I haven't discussed so far in the previous lectures, but when I discuss the internal structures, there you will surely find this part. So what are the three layers of cerebellar cortex? So there are three important layers, guys. One is called as molecular layer, another one is called as Purkinje layer, and third one is called as a granular layer. So what are these three layers? So one you call it as molecular layer. Second one is called as your Purkinje, okay, Purkinje layer, and the third one over here is called as your granular layer. So these are the three important layers that are located within your cerebellar cortex. Okay, right. So are these done? No, still we have got few important things to discuss. Let us say number 10, right? Number 10. Next important thing is that what are the three nuclei that are present within the cerebellum? Okay, so what are the three nuclei? So basically these nuclei are present in the roof of the cerebellum. Okay, so you call them as a three roof nuclei. So what are these three nuclei that are present? So these three nuclei are, one is called as Emboliformus, another one is called as Fastigious, and third one is called as Globose. Okay, so what are the three nuclei here? Emboliform nuclei, fastigious, nucleus fastigious, nucleus emboliformus, as well as nucleus globoses. Okay, so these are the three important nuclei that are located. So what are the three important nuclei? Emboliformes. Emboliformes. And second important nuclei is nucleus fastigius. Nucleus fastigius, and third important thing is nucleus globoses. Okay. Now within the cerebellum, what are the different kinds of nerve fibers? There are basically only three different types of nerve fibers. Again, this thing which I am rounding it up, I haven't discussed, I will discuss it. Okay. So what are the three types of nerve fibers? Three types of nerve fibers. So what are the three basic types of nerve fibers are? One is called as commissural fibers. One is called as association fibers. Another one is called as commissural fibers, ACP. Just remember it as ACP. A stands for association fibers, C stands for commissural fibers, and P stands for projection fibers. So there are three different types of fibers. One is called as association fibers. Another one is called as commissural fibers. And third one is called as projection fibers. Okay. Next important thing is that what are the three arteries that are supplying the cerebellum? So what are the three arteries that supply the cerebellum? So there are three important arteries, guys. One is called as the superior cerebellar artery. Next one is called as the anterior inferior cerebellar artery. Next one is called as the posterior inferior cerebellar artery. So what are these three? One is called superior. Next one is called anterior inferior. Next is called as posterior inferior. Okay. So three arteries. One is called as a superior cerebellar artery. Another one is called as an anterior inferior cerebellar artery. And third one is called as a posterior inferior cerebellar artery. Posterior inferior cerebellar artery. Okay, so these are the three important cerebellar arteries. So let us just revise the things which we have just discussed here, guys. So the first important thing here is, this is also called as a game of two. So here we discussed two hemispheres, right? One is called as the right and the left hemisphere. We discussed two notches, anterior as well as the posterior notch. We discussed two surfaces, one is superior, another one is the inferior. Borders are, one is anterolateral, another one is called as a posterior border. How many cerebellar peduncles are there? 2. How many middle cerebellar peduncles are there? Again 2. How many inferior cerebellar peduncles are there? Again 2. Right? So there are 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. It means completely 3 pairs. Okay. So 2 superior, 2 inferior, 2 middle and 2 inferior cerebellar peduncles. Next important thing, what are the anterior relations? Okay. Anterior relations are, one is called as pons, another one is called as your medulla oblongata. Right. Next, what are the three parts? This thing we have already discussed. Anatomical lobes are 3. One is called as anterior lobe, posterior or middle lobe, and third one is called as flocculonodular lobe. Physiological lobes are 3. Vestibulospinocerebellar lobe, spinocerebellar lobe, and corticopontocerebellar lobe. So these are the 3 physiological lobes. Coming to embryological lobes, archicerebellum, paleocerebellum, another one is called as your neocerebellum. Okay. 3 major fissures: fissura prima, horizontal fissure, posterolateral fissure. These are the 3 important things. What are the 3 pairs of peduncles? I have already discussed. What are the 3 connections of the brain? Cerebellum is attached to the brainstem. Okay, so brainstem is consisting of what? Midbrain, pons, and medulla oblongata. So these are the 3 structures that are connecting with your cerebellum. Now coming to the 3 structural parts, within the, if you make a section of the cerebellum, Outside you will find the gray matter, in the center you will have the white matter, and within this white matter you will see pieces of gray matter called as nuclei. Now coming to the last important thing, what are the three layers of cerebellar cortex? We discussed molecular layer, Purkinje layer and granular layer. Coming to the three nuclei, you have got Emboliform nuclei, Fastigious, nucleus fastigious and nucleus globose. These are the three nuclei. Three types of nerve fibers, you can remember it as CAP or ACP, association fibers, commissural fibers as well as projection fibers. And finally, what are the three arteries that supply the cerebellum? One is called as the superior cerebellar artery, anterior inferior cerebellar as well as posterior inferior cerebellar. So these are some of the important points, right, which include under the topic of summary of the cerebellum. Thank you so much for watching my video. Goodbye.